Great evening, everybody, and welcome to the daily Rambam Shir, 3 chapters per day. Lesson number 111, Hilchos Nedarim. We're covering the chapters from 7 till 9. Once upon a time, after a conversation with a person who was in trouble, and indeed not only he was in trouble, but he was quite a powerful troublemaker himself. And after conversing with him, the rabbi who was speaking with him, he expressed to his assistant, "Wow, what pity on this person." So his secretary turns to the rabbi and he says, "What are you talking about? There is no pity on him. He is one of those people that the Torah himself says it is forbidden to have pity on him." There is an expression in the Talmud that says, shoite, a person who is foolish, who brings himself into trouble and other people to trouble, it is forbidden to have mercy, to have pity on him. Because by having pity on him, you're putting other people in trouble. That's what the secretary told to the rabbi. So how come you have expressed that you have pity on this person? The rabbi looks at his secretary and he says, "Can you imagine how much pity we gotta have on this individual that even the Torah itself forbids to have upon him pity? There is not amount of sufficient pity that we gotta have, we have gathered." And in fact, the entire subject of the first chapter of the Rambam today deals indeed, how can we have legally have pity and exercise our pity upon this person who the Torah forbids to have pity on him. In what context? We spoke yesterday that a person can impose a restriction upon him not to benefit from another human being, which is basically a vow, a neder. A person can also impose upon another party not to benefit from him. So in a case that two people who are in a state of restriction, of a self-imposed restriction not to benefit from each other, and they happen to live and share a common area. They share a yard. They live in the same neighborhood. They live in the same alley. And they sharing amongst themselves a yard. And as neighbors, well, they are using the yard. So the yard belongs to both of them. When it belongs to both of them, so obviously when I'm just sitting, relaxing, or stepping, or walking, am I not benefiting from the person who I not allowed to benefit? So what's the solution? So there is a few solutions. So if the yard is divisible, it's okay, which means I can put a divider, a partition, or any type of fence, I should. But if the yard is so small that there is not even given to a possibility to divide it, so then each and every one should just walk by and he can claim, "I'm walking in my property." However, none of them is allowed to place in that shared property let it be a oven or utensil or any other device, because in order to walk by, there is a recognition that there is no choice. But in order to go out and place over there a convenient device that will make your life comfortable at a time that you are restricted from benefit from the other person's belonging, that's not allowed. There is another dilemma. When two people, again, that each and every one is restricted to benefit from each other. So if they're living in the same neighborhood and they're going to daven in the same shul, or they sharing the common plaza of the town, there is many items in the town that each, just by the fact that each and every one pays the property tax or any other type of fees as a member of the town, so they are sharing it with each other. So what should they do? So the legal way for them to go about it, that each and every one of them must to assign his share to a third party. Let the third party be the president or the mayor of the city or any other residents. However, none of them can maintain ownership of his share in the mutual property of the town, since by continue to maintain his share, he is exposing his friend to a prohibition, and he is being exposed as well to a prohibition.
What if second one is participating in this common area?
When he's participating, he's a shareholder. When he's a shareholder, he's an owner. When he's an owner, so I'm benefiting from his property. We're talking over here about a case that two people are mutually prohibited to benefit from the other person's property. Now, they happen to live in the same town, and they happen to share the same shul. In the olden days, the way it went to a shul, it was like a corporation today. Each and every member used to pay a membership fee, and the membership fee is basically their share in the structure of the shul. So, given the fact that he is the person who is not allowed to benefit from his property, happens to be a partial owner in this shul, how can he step in to a shul that the restricted party is a partial owner? So the way to deal about it, when each and every one are assigning and giving away his partial ownership in this shul to a third party. That's how we're going to about it. Yeah, that's yeah. On the other hand, let's say there is another dilemma. Each and every one of them, let's say one of them have lost an item, and I found the item. Now, on one hand, I have the mitzvah to return a lost item. On the other hand, the other person is restricted to benefit from me. What should I do? I should return the item anyway, because the returning of a lost object is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, it's part of the commandments. Mitzvahs in general, they were not given as a form to enjoy, to benefit. Mitzvahs, by definition, they are commandments that were given by God in order to obey them. So therefore, he should return the lost object to his friend, despite the fact that his friend is not allowed to benefit from him, but this is not considered a benefit. It's called the fulfillment of a mitzvah. However, there is, let's say, if both of them happens to be, they are in a state of restriction to benefit from each other, and yet in that particular town or location, it is customary for them to pay money for someone who returns to them the lost object. So which means the returning of the lost object is a valuable item. So either way, they will be in a dilemma. If the person will pay him, so the person who returns the lost object, he is in a violation of his vow that he benefits from the payment. If he is not going to pay him, the person who gets back the lost item, he is in a form of benefit. So what's the solution? The solution that the money should be paid, but not to the person who returned the lost item to him, but it should be given to a donation to Hekdesh, to any holy cause. That way, there is no violation upon the personal vow that were taken by each and every one of them. There is one exclusion, and this is what we're talking, for example, in the temple, in Har HaBais. Har HaBais is a temple in Jerusalem. Each and every Jew happens by the contribution of the half a shekels, by the contribution of the building of the temple. Each and every Jew is a partner. So given the fact that there is one Jew, or two Eden who are restricted to benefit from each other because of a vow, how can they enter to the temple when there is a partial ownership in this temple by the party who they are restricted to benefit from? The answer, I should not worry about it, given the fact that the fraction of ownership is so minimal, so it's not a cause to worry about it. So this is the only exception where no necessary act is necessary in order to take care of it. Now, if a person took upon himself to not to benefit from a certain nation in the world, let's say a certain nation, and they happen to export, import, will he allow to buy their products? Will he allow to sell them his products? So the answer, yes, but subject to the following condition. It's okay for him to sell them products as long as he charges for the product less than usual. And it's okay to purchase from them product as long as he pays more than usual. By giving the premium in a case of a purchase and selling in a discount in a case of the sale, so he is eliminating the benefits factor from the transaction. If an individual took upon himself not to have any Kohanim benefit from him, he is restricted to Kohanim to benefit from him. The Kohanim, any Kohen, can go against his will and collect the Turumois, the Bikurim, all other 24 gifts that a Kohen is entitled to collect. However, if he specified not just Kohanim, that Kohen, a specific Kohen, is forbidden to benefit from it. So that specific Kohen, he is indeed forbidden to benefit from him, and the collection of all the 24 gifts that Kohanim are entitled will be collected by other Kohanim, not necessarily this Kohen. So that's if another case of having pity upon the person who is restricted to have pity on him. He has a friend that he knows that this friend is restricted to benefit from him, or because the friend himself took upon himself a vow, or I have restricted him to benefit from me, but I got inside information that this person is hungry and he have nothing what to eat. Now I'm in a dilemma. On one hand, I don't want him to starve. On the other hand, he cannot benefit from me. What should I do? I should go to the grocery person and I share with him my dilemma. And I will tell him, this Mr. A, he has nothing to eat and I cannot feed him because he is forbidden to benefit from me. If the Chenvoni gets the hint and he goes and he feeds him, and not only the grocer goes and feeds him, but also all other services included, whether his house is caved and needs some construction, any type of services, not only product, but he can share his dilemma with the service provider. If they getting the hint and they do what necessary, the service necessary or the product necessary, and they giving him, and they providing the service, they can later invoice the person who shared the story with them, and he will be able to pay them. The reason, as we have learned yesterday, that when it comes to the issue of Nedarim, of vows, a payment of a pre-existing debt is not a benefit. A benefit is only above neutral, but as I said, when you are still in the red and you're getting less in the red, this is not considered a benefit, and for that reason, it's okay to pay an invoice for a party that is in a restricted state of benefit for me. This is basically the first chapter. The second chapter, there is a story about once upon a time a lady borrowed from her friends a utensil, a very important utensil, a cooking utensil. And she waits a day, a week, a month, and she sees that her friends is not giving her back the utensil she have borrowed. She goes to her and she asks, what happened with the utensil? The utensil. So here it is. First of all, I don't think that I ever borrowed from your utensil. Second, I think I've returned to you. Third, the utensil was broken to begin with. I mean, this is a classical story, but if you're going to take the actual common denominator of all those three reasons, though seemingly contradicting each other, but obviously their common thread, that all of them are reasons for her not to take care of her obligation of returning back the utensil. I remember this story. It reminded me this story when I've learned the second chapter of the Rambam today, which is tied to what you have raised yesterday, the question, but today, in today's chapter, the Rambam really clarifies it. There is three ways when a person is not going to have any commitments to follow his vow, to exercise his vow. And it's similarly to that story that I told you. Or, to begin with, was no vow. Or, the vow was broken, and soon we're going to see. Or, the vow went through a release system, which is called Hatoras Nedarim, which is what we call return the item. I use this story specifically. There is one way a person says, I'm taking upon myself a vow not to marry this lady, since her father is an evil man. He said what is he going to do, not to marry, and he explained why. The father improved his way, became a good man, made tshuva and became a good man. So obviously he can go ahead and marry her, because by him stating that the entire reason for him not to marry is like on the condition, it's like he says this, that as long as his father is a bad man, is an evil man, I'm not going to marry her. So when her father becomes a good man, so the condition was lifted, you can go ahead. Then there is a second way. I'm not marry this ugly woman. I'm not marrying this ugly woman. He didn't explain, he just defined. Now, turn out that this woman is not ugly, she is beautiful. So in such a case, it was not a condition. It was a lack of awareness. It was a lack of awareness. Given the fact that it was a lack of awareness, so to begin with, it was no vow. In the first one, it was a mechanism of promise tied to a condition. And it was, her father was a bad man, and he removed, so it was two actions. Over here, in the second one, it was to begin with, it was a lack of awareness. I was defining this lady as ugly, and turns out I had the wrong information to begin with.
he vowed not to marry on somebody else's information?
Yeah.
Or he saw?
No,
he
it's
saw-
not somebody.
He saw
That's
it.
he saw a woman. He was under the impression that this particular. I mean, maybe he knew he had or had a rumor. He heard the wrong thing. Whatever. There, I'm just giving an example. Can be million
No, it
example.
cannot be an example unless, or he decided that she is ugly on somebody else's opinion,
Or because
he
his
saw
own,
her and decided.
or because his eyes vision was wrong, or because of confusion, or because many times a person is under chemical influence. Whatever the reason was, it's irrelevant. What is relevant over here? No, what is, I'm just using it as an example. What is relevant over here, that a person were lacking the right information, and based upon a lack of information that was missing, he made a vow. So such a situation is, to begin with, is not really a vow to begin with. It's not a conditional. Like, that's what we spoke yesterday. And then there is a third type of a neder. That's what we spoke a few days before. When something new occurs, a person takes upon himself not to benefit from this individual. Now, this individual, he had good reasons, he know this individual. Later on, this individual was promoted to be, as I told to, or the teacher of the city, or the judge of the, whatever, he promoted to serve a important, functional, meaningful function in the city. In such a point, something new happened. Such a thing, you gotta go through the process of hatoras nedarim. Then there is, he goes through one expert or to three people, where he declares, I have restricted any benefits from this individual, but given the new developments that took place at this point, I'm asking you to release. And then they have asking him, had you knew at that time that if he will become, or if he will be in this state, would you restrict yourself? Then it goes through the entire process of what we call hatoras nedarim. So that's three levels of situations where the utensils is not being returned. In our case, is where the vow is not supposed to be kept, or, as I said, because to begin with it was no vow, or it was a vow that tied to a condition, or it was a vow that went through the process of hatoras nedarim. So this is the three general situation where a person, his neder is not obligatory. When a person, for example, there is an interesting example that the Rambam brings. If a person sees from far a bunch of people are picking on his figs. He has an orchard where beautiful figs or dates are growing there, and he sees a bunch of people from there. And he says, well, I'm restricting upon them, like a offering, like a korban, any benefits from this dates of mine. And then he gets closer, and he sees that his father is amongst those people. Obviously, he meant, although he did not say it, but it was clearly that his entire prohibition was to against foreign people, but not his own people. So obviously, this will be a situation that belongs to the second part, where a person was basically saying a statement of a vow thanks to a lack of information, that he was not aware that his father is amongst them. So since his father is permitted to benefit from the dates, since obviously he did not meant to restrict those fruits upon his own father. So there is a rule, neder shehutar miktsosoi, when a vow is partially released, so it is entirely released. So as a result of his father able to benefit from those dates, the other group or the rest of the group, they will also be permitted to benefit as well, unless the person came there and he says the following declaration: had I knew that my father will be amongst you guys, I would have worded the vow differently. I would have worded that all of you besides my father are prohibited, but my father is permitted. If he stated that way, then though his father obviously is permitted, but the other group will be restricted. It is also, when it comes to the release or to dealing with the severity of any vow, to assess the circumstances at what condition the vow were taking place. Illustration: if a person, for example, he carries as a porter, he's schlepping on his shoulder a box, not a box, a pile of wool in a hot day. As a result of discomfort, he takes upon himself, I'm taking a vow not to benefit from wool any longer. Given the fact that this vow came as a result of him carrying the wool, not actually dressing in a wool dress, but carrying just raw material of wool, so then he is forbidden to carry wool, but he will be permitted to dress on wool. Same thing goes the opposite. If a person were wearing hot wool as a dress in a hot day, and as a result he's sweating and he's smelling, and he says, I'm not going to have any benefits from wool any longer. So again, he won't be able to have benefits from wool as a dress, but he will be allowed to carry wool as a weight. So each and every vow, the circumstances and the environment that the vow was made is being factored in and is being considered. There is another story that the Rambam brings to make his point stronger, that always I will assess and will factor in the so-called the text, the subtext. And here is a very interesting consideration of a subtext more than a text. Once upon a time, a lady said the following statement: anyone who will approach me first, I will gladly be married to him. So obviously, immediately her phone didn't stop to ring, and so many people approached her. So she was in a dilemma. Those people were not really feeding her imagination of the ideal husband. So she came to the rabbis, and they said, you're not obligated to marry those people who propose to you right now, because obviously, though you did not say it, but it's clearly, when you say people, it doesn't mean people, it means feeding people, qualified people, people who are really would be appropriate for you to marry them. The third chapter, I would start with an interesting story that once upon a time, one of the great notorious mashpim in Chabad, Olav Sholem Rabbi Pliskin, he was a Chassid who lived in Russia, later migrated to Australia, and when he came back to New York, the Rebbe encouraged him to farbrengen with the youth. And he instructed him how a farbrengen and what will be the structure of a farbrengen. And he suggested him that throughout the farbrengen, he should concentrate on stories that took place about Hasidim, personal, normal people. And he explained how come he should share stories of Hasidim, which they are disciples, they are students. Wouldn't be better to share stories about the Rebbes, about the masters? And the Rebbe explained him, when you are sharing a story about a Rebbe, given the fact that they are great holy people, not necessarily the lesson will be effective, because a instinct of the listener will be, well, how can I really, with the spoon of skills and gifts that were handed to me, I would be able to achieve even a fraction of this great holy man. But when you are sharing a story of a chassid, which is a normal human being with struggles, with weaknesses, with difficulties, and yet after a effort, endless, tired effort and work and prayers, he managed to refine a little bit his midos, his characters. So then that's something that is inspiring and will be more effective. I thought about this story because today's topic, the theme of the third chapter of the Rambam, is a general definition. And the definition goes like this: Nedarim haleich achar loshoin bnei Odom. When a person expresses a vow and there is a doubt what the definition of the vow is, you must consider the translation of the term amongst bnei Odom, amongst human beings, not the terminology, not the glossary of halacha, not the glossary of Torah, but the glossary, the terminology of human beings. And now a few illustrations, a few examples that highlighting this point. For example, a person takes upon himself a restriction that I won't eat cooked food. Does it mean cooked only, or it means fried, roasted? How about barbecued? So in order to define whether cooked means only cooked or all types of others, so it will be much defined by the common translation of the people in that particular place at that particular time. Which means when it comes to Nedarim, when it comes to vows, another example, if a person says, I won't eat any salty dishes, does he mean only a salty fish, or he means all other salty dishes as well? So again, sometimes in certain areas, when they mean salty, they would limit it to a siliotka only, and some other places they will include much more product. For example, it's not only about salty, about pickled as well. Sometimes people will mean pickle only a pickled vegetables, and some people will have pickled fish or even pickled meat or any other. So it's all depends what is the current meaning of the human being in that particular place at that particular time. At the time when it's doubt, and for example, some people will limit a certain definition to a certain product, and some people in that particular place will expand the application of the term to more product. So I am in a state what we call sofek nedarim. Sofek nedarim, when I'm in doubt. So the conclusion, I will always lehachmir, will take the severe side. Another illustration, how in a case that what he really means. If a person, for example, he took a vow that he's not going to benefit from those members of the sea. Generally, members of the sea refers to the captains, to people who are involved in the ocean business, whether through swimmers or whether through sailors, all other types of surfing or Now, this person, since he limited the restriction to the seagoers, he will permit it to benefit from people who are living on the surface, on the land. However, if a person took upon himself not to benefit from people who are members of the land, he will be restricted also from people who are going in the sea. Another example, if a person took upon himself not to benefit from Kohanim, so he will be able to benefit from Levim and Israelim because he limited only from Kohanim. But if he says, I'm not benefiting from Israelim, then he's not allowed to benefit from Kohanim as well. And the reason? Because Israelim is a general term. When you come Kohanim, Levim is a very, very specific term. Another example, if a person took upon himself not to benefit from the children of Noah, although technically we all children of Noah, nevertheless, when it comes to the Nedarim, the reference of Bnei Noach is to non-Jews only. If a person took upon himself not to benefit from circumcised people, so though amongst Jews there are people who not circumcised, and the opposite, amongst non-Jew there are people who are circumcised, nevertheless he won't be able to benefit even from the uncircumcised Jew, and he will be able to benefit even from the circumcised non-Jew. And the reason? Because again, when it comes to the Nedarim, the term circumcised and uncircumcised is not a reference on the physical reality, but it's a reference for the commitment and for the original order to who is supposed to be circumcised. And it is interesting, I will conclude with that note that there is a famous vote of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is very much associated with the final statement that we said, that in order to make a proper structure in our life, we always have to remember where we're supposed to be, where we are capable to be, and where we are. At the moment that we are able to make a proper understanding where we're supposed to be, where we are capable to be, and where we are, and how far the disproportion from each other, and how much will take us in order to align this disproportion, so then we are heading on the right direction. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah,